Hi everyone, and welcome to the Robertson Media Center at the University of Virginia. This is an attempt to make a lightning-fast introduction to Audacity. Tutorials in the Lightning Round series are all under 15 minutes. Audacity is a free, open-source, multi-track audio editor and recorder. This video series is intended for beginners and only covers enough to get started. But we have so much to cover, let's just dive right in. Okay, so this is the actual interface. You can see the kind of navigation stuff over here. Up on the top left is your, play options, play, pause, stop, forward, backward. Here's your record button. Next to that is the toolbox, where we'll talk a lot more about those tools. You have your monitoring up here, check levels, both recording, and then also when you are playing back. And then you can adjust those levels here right below. Undo, redo. Then you have your timeline down here. Here are your inputs and outputs. We'll talk about that when we record. Just make sure you have your, microphone set here, and then this one here, it would be your speakers, your headphones. So just make sure you select those as you move into your project. First thing to do is go to File, Save Project As, and find a good location to save it. This is just a work file that you'll come back to and keep working on. When you're done, you will have to export. We'll cover that a little bit later. So before we record, let's try and move some audio in so we can take a look at what it looks like. So here I have some audio I could grab. Here are some violins, and then I'll bring in wolves howling. And here you can see what that looks like. You can bring them in that way, or you can go to File, Import Audio, and you can choose them here as well. To select, you'll use this selection tool here. It works a lot like in a word processor, where you're kind of selecting a sentence. Choose a moment you want to start playing, and then press play. We can hit the spacebar button. Okay, so that's what that sounds like together. And you can see as I hit play again, over in the levels here for playback, you'll see them bounce around. That's telling you how loud the audio that it's currently playing, how loud the audio currently is as it moves through your timeline. Note here that I press stop and not pause. If I pause it, then I can't actually make any edits. If I were using any of these other tools, it tells me I can't do that. So make sure you hit stop if you want to continue editing. So let's look at the primary tools we have here in Audacity. As you can see, they're right up here. There's 5 of them in this new version. Previous version had 6. So if you see 6, go back and watch the previous video in the link below. The first one we're going to look at is called the selection tool. If I hover over, you can see it says selection tool. It's F1. The selection tool is like a typing cursor in a word processor. This allows you to select a point in time or to highlight a selection, much like a sentence, in a word processor. So from there, you can apply changes to these selections. The most common change is simply to remove a selection. So I press delete right there, and I can remove that whole thing. I'm going to undo it. Notice that Audacity automatically shifts the remaining audio down, which is it's great for beginners, but frustrating if you want to keep the other tracks aligned. If I delete here, you'll see the rest now becomes out of sync, right? This moves over here, so these two are still in sync, but this one's off. And this can be a huge issue if you have a giant file and you're trying to time everything out. So for instance, if you're making music or if you're placing things in a specific time frame, you can see that that's going to cause an issue with sync. So this is a major limitation of deleting a selection. So I'm going to undo that. The easiest answer to this issue is the silence button, which is Command L or Control L on a PC. This button will silence the selection rather than remove it. So you can see that now it's flatlined. It's basically, it turned the volume down to 0 on that selection. Thus, your timing will not be altered at all. So it's very useful for music or anything that requires things to stay in sync. Command Z, I'll undo that. Similarly, you can use the trim outside button to keep only the selected region. So if you wanted to keep this lined up but get rid of everything else, you can then use this button, right? And that gets rid of everything else in that clip. So I'm going to undo that. And it's essentially the inverse of silence. You can keep your timing but the rest the volume's turned down to 0. All right, now we get to one of the newer features in this version of Audacity, which are clip handles. There used to be a separate move tool to be able to move clips, and now those are included in all the tools. So if I was in the envelope tool, for instance, you can see that I can move clips that way too. So let's go back to the selection tool. So now you can see as I hover over the very top strip of this clip, not down here, but up top, you can see that hand shows up. And that means if I click and drag, I can move that clip using any tool with what are called clip handles here. Undo that. Or if you hover down below, you can see then you can use your selection tool just like I was showing before. So watch as I grab this clip and slide it back and forth in time. It started at 0 beginning, and now it's over at about 5 seconds into the project. I can actually move this onto a different track if you want, so I can move it onto any of these tracks. The only thing that matters here is that I can't move a stereo onto a mono track or a mono onto a stereo track. One more thing you can do with the selection tool that is also brand new with the recent change, if you hover at the edge of the clip, so if you move the hand over to the far edge on either the front or end of the clip, you can actually click and drag and do what's called trim. That's one way you can edit. So instead of cutting things, if you just want to shorten the clip, you can just grab that edge. But you'll notice it doesn't happen down here. It just happens up along that top clip bar along the top. So let me grab that, and I could cut this to half or extend it out all the way to the edge of the clip. And you could do that with any of these clips if you want to trim the clip. Now that I can move clips, how can I cut one into pieces and move it separately? See, I have 2 clips here. Maybe I want to do that, right, with the music over here. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool and find a point that you want to cut. So I'm going to choose this point here. And instead of cutting, this is called splitting. To split the clip, you select your location, right-click, and choose Split Clip. You can see it also has the keyboard shortcut, Command-I or Control-I on a PC. So when you select that, now it's 2 separate pieces. And I can move them independently. One more tool that you should be aware of is, let's say I've got talking, right? And then right through here, I'm going to move this over. Right through here, you can see that there's actually a lot of sound going on in the music. And this is going to make it difficult to hear. So there's something called the envelope tool. Now what this does is you can actually change volume over time. So you'll create what are called keyframes. They're points at which volume is set at a certain level. Now this can be really useful. I'll show you how. So I create a point here, and you'll see how there's a little dot there now? This is create a point exactly at that mark here in time where this is saying this is the volume here. And then if I choose a different spot, you can see I could change that volume. So it's going to animate between those 2 points. It's going to go from this volume down to this volume at this point. I can create points here, and then I can say, oh, well, this has talking going on right now. So I'm going to drop down my music during the talking portion, and then I can increase the music afterwards, right? So I can have it kind of start with the music, go down for the talking part, and then come back up at the end. This is also great, for instance, if you want it to fade in. So you can create a point here and say, oh, I want it this loud there, and then you can fade in the beginning of the clip, which will make it kind of a gradual increase in volume from nothing. Right next to this little microphone symbol, you need to select which microphone you're going to record from. In this case, you can see that I am recording from the MacBook Pro microphone. So the first thing you want to do is to turn on monitoring. You will see up along the top here, you can see there's a phrase that says click to start monitoring. All you have to do is select it. There we go. So you can see as I'm talking, the bars are changing, and as I say things, they bounce up. So that's good. It means my microphone is working. I would say that the microphone recording volume is a little bit loud. And you can see as I hit the peaks, they can go above -6. Right here, you see there's a -6, -12, -18, and so on. A good maximum volume for a loud sound, such as my speaking, the peaks should hit somewhere in between -6 and -12. So I'm actually going to come over here below this little microphone symbol. There's another one and a slider bar. This is the recording volume. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Now, not all of your sounds are going to be that loud, so you need to choose another kind of range. I would say for a quieter sound, something that you want heard but not necessarily be that loud. You can see that sometimes my voice is bouncing around -18. I would go -18 to -30 for something you want to be heard clearly, but not necessarily something that's very loud. But you can always record it louder and then turn it down in the program itself. Clipping is when you hit the 0 mark on these levels. And that's really bad because the microphone itself can't actually pick up that noise, and so it becomes this level of distortion. And especially in the human voice, that distortion is bad. You can't get rid of it. You can always create it later, so you might as well record in an area where you're not actually clipping, you're not too loud for the microphone. So I'm going to give you an example of what it's like to be too loud for the microphone. So pardon the noise. So this is too loud for the microphone. And you can see that there's a big problem with this sound. So I'm going to stop that now because it's really unpleasant. So you just need to think about trying to find exactly the right levels. Well, now let's record. So if I hit the record button, you can see now it's actually creating the waveforms. That means the microphone's working. It also means that since it's not peaking and it's not too small, that my levels are correct. And I'm going to hit stop. And let's say I'm done and I want to turn it in. You're going to have to export it. If I go to File, you see there's a menu for Export. Now this is where you're going to have to look at your project guidelines. There are different types of files that you can export. For most classes that I've taught in, the professors prefer an MP3. This is where you can see export as MP3 for most projects. And this is where you can select your settings. So I would choose the highest quality you can, because even that is going to be significantly smaller than a wave. But your professor also might have recommendations on how many kilobytes per second. So here I'm going to choose desktop and click save. Again, they'll be mixed down and exported as one single stereo file. Now this is going to pop up by default, and it's simply just the metadata tags. So here's where you go, oh, none of this is right, clear it, and you can put anything you want in here, or you can just leave it empty, but I would definitely clear it. So I'll click OK, and now it's exporting. Now you can see that it's done exporting, and I have my file, my MP3 file, which is right next to my AUP. You can see when I save that, it also has this data here. I would recommend that you create a new folder. You say, my test project, put your name on it or whatever you want to call that, and then put everything you used in one folder and keep it there. The important thing is that you keep all of your audio files that you used, which I didn't do here, right? I should have all of those, voice tracks and everything all in one folder so that I can return to that AUP and continue editing it on a different computer, for instance. But if you just want the file to turn in, here it is, the MP3 file, and you can see how large it is. It's 5.9 megabytes, which is not bad. You can even send that in an email. Okay, that's as fast as I could go. Please see the full video tutorials that I've made for more details. And also don't hesitate to come to my office hours or email me with questions. Thanks.